let's go through the analysis sheets for level 2, 3, and 4. This is only going to be a voiced presentation. I'm not bothering with video. I am going to simply explain to you how to transfer your utterances from your spontaneous language sample with a typically developing child. Transfer that sample from the transcription sheet, which we've already spoken about, to the analysis sheet. Recall there are 3 levels of analysis. The term level doesn't really refer to developmental level. We use the term phase to refer to developmental level. Instead, it's the approach to analysis, and the 3 levels of analyses are levels again 2, 3, and 4, where level 2, the first one we'll talk about in terms of the worksheet, involves utterances in which there is no syntax. An example might be and I'm going to type while I speak. An example of a no syntax utterance would be all gone. All gone. Or more kitty cat. More kitty cat. That's because you don't know if that's a subject, a verb, or a complement of anything. It really implies no verb. There's no verb involved in these things. So, and no verb argument. You don't know if more kitty cat could be a subject. More kitty cats would be great to have, or a complement. I want more kitty cat. You don't know. Therefore, it's a level 2 utterance. Level 3 utterances, which will be placed on the worksheet that we'll discuss in a minute, involve one verb. One verb. So a single verb with its arguments, that is, with its subject and complement. So an example of that would be, I want a kitty cat. That would be a level 3 utterance. It would go to the level 3 analysis sheet. A level 4 utterance is an utterance in which there are 2 verbs, a sentence in which there are 2 verbs. An example of that would be, I want a kitty cat, but mommy said no. There are 2 verbs. I want, the verb want, and the verb said, verb. So therefore, we consider that a level 4 utterance. It goes to the level 4 analysis sheet, which we'll be speaking about in a moment. Let's go to level 2, the level 2 analysis sheet. Notice it has room for the child's name, date of sample, and the time in which this was, day and time in which this was recorded. I don't want to know your child's name. Make up a pseudonym or just use initials of some sort. I am interested in the child's age. But you'll indicate that to me somewhere. There's no room for it here. You can still put it on top yourself. The main point here is the following. You will transcribe the utterances. You will take the utterances from the transcription sheet, which is that 3-column sheet that has the child's utterance, the child's actions, and the actions and comments of others. Transcribed. In other words, you're going to transcribe 100 utterances and everything the child does and says. You're going to transcribe all that material on a 3-column sheet. Then you're going to start your analysis there. You'll think to yourself, what kind of an utterance is this? Does this utterance have any verbs attached to it? 1 verb attached within it? 2 verbs within it? If there is no verbs within it and no verb implied, you would recognize that you are going to take the utterance and move it to copy it and move it to the Level 2 analysis sheet. Now that Level 2 analysis sheet has in the left-hand column you see a list of content categories that probably the comment is going to belong to one of these. Now you can add others if you feel the utterance you're analyzing belongs to another one, represents a different content category. But what you do is include, if the utterance fits into one of these content categories, if it represents one of these categories, you would rewrite the utterance in this in column 2, next to the appropriate content category. So if the kid said cat, or you would put it here. If the kid said that's a cat, you will have made a mistake. That is a mistake. It does not belong here. Why? Because there is a verb here. In fact, there's a subject and SVC, subject-verb complement. We'll save that utterance for sheet number, the Level 3 analysis sheet. We will simply put here those utterances that belong, that have no verb relation implied. That is no SVC, no verb, and no syntax. All gone, that I would put that under non-existence or disappearance. More kitty cat, that looks to me like it would be recurrence. And that's what you do. You simply put the utterance, rewrite the utterance and put that utterance in the slot in which you feel it belongs. The kid says no spinach, because doesn't want spinach. I'd put that here. Okay? Now this second column, it is possible that you will get a utterance that has more than one content categories attached to it, like three yellow birds. That utterance, 3 yellow birds. Well, you have 3, that is a quantity, and that's not even listed here, so you'll have to add another, you could put another column that's called quantity to pick that up. You have yellow, that's attribution, and you have birds, which goes to existence. Where do you put this utterance? Well, I don't really care. Pick out, because it's a Level 2, pick out one of those 3 content categories to classify it under, but you can use the coordinated column to note the other content categories that are together with it. So say I don't believe, I wrote it under temporal, but that was stupid because there's no temporalness there at all. It could possibly go under attribution, Command V, because I have more kitty cat, wrong one. That's weird. That's weird. 3 yellow birds. 3 yellow birds. 3 yellow birds. So I have attribution there. I could put quantity here. And even well, there's quantity 2 ways. There's the word 3, and there's the morpheme S, both of which code quantity. So I could indicate the coordinated there. There are 3 more columns here: linguistic, perceptual support, and function. These refer to pragmatics. Linguistic context will refer to whether the utterance the child says relates to a previous utterance that either the child said or an adult said. Perceptual support refers to whether or not the object that the kid is talking about is actually physically present or not. And function is the reason for talking. What's the purpose of the kid's comment? To comment, to label, to respond to a request, to pretend what? We are not going to focus on that in today's lecture, I will not focus on that in my comments right now. I will come back to that a little later in the term. Right now, today, I am going to introduce these forms by focusing on the content category and how to handle the content analysis and the form analysis. And we'll come back to pragmatics, which is what linguistic context, perceptual support, and function refer to. I believe that the reason I do this in this order is that the content-form interaction, to me, is more complex and systematic than is the pragmatics analysis. But we will come back to the pragmatic analysis, I promise you. Remember, the Bloom and Leahy analysis is a content-form use analysis. So, this is what you do. You identify the non-verb utterances in your, the ones that have no verb, in your language sample. You figure out what content category you feel they belong to, and you categorize them on this level 2 sheet. And you put all of the utterances that fall within the content category that you identify in the appropriate slot. In other words, all gone. The child may have used several non-existents, or just all gone, daddy gone, mommy, no mommy. Well, they'd all go here. The other thing is, and I didn't include it right yet, but I would include here, say this is utterance number 5. This is utterance number 13. This is utterance number 22, etc. You put the number of the utterance into the utterance slot. You always include the number of the utterance. Okay? Okay. Now, let's go to the level 3 analysis sheet. Again, you will have originally transcribed your utterances on the transcription sheet, that 3-column sheet that we introduced a while ago. Then what you do is you have to do, you take a look and you ask yourselves which of the utterances have a single verb in them. A single verb. They will be the reflexive object relation. They will then represent this reflexive object relation content categories, or the object relation content categories. Those are the ones we are going to be focusing on for our level 3 analysis, if you remember that original Leahy chart that we went through. Now, this is the level 3 analysis format, to me, is the most complex and challenging in the entire Leahy analysis, content form use analysis format. This is a bit challenging. And what makes it challenging first is notice that the word content category is up here on the top of the analysis sheet. And also on the bottom of the analysis sheets, there are more content category. There's more content category stuff. In fact, you see names of the content categories. Many of the non-verb relation content categories. Many of the content categories that go with single verb utterances. The question is, and I kind of gave it away here, what's the difference between the content category on the top and the content categories on the bottom? And I kind of just gave it away, that difference. The content category on the top is will be the verb relation content category of the sentence that you are analyzing. The content categories on the bottom are already labeled coordinated. Coordinated means non-verb relation content categories, non-verb relation. So you will find them again in utterances that include at least two constituents, and that is minimally a verb and one of its arguments, hopefully, or typically two arguments, that is a subject and an argument is the subject of the verb or the complement of the verb. And a verb, there has to be a verb either stated or implied in order for the utterance to be considered for level 3 analysis. So let's take a look at the sentence, I want a kitty cat. And say that was utterance number 15. We will put the number in, always the number from the transcription sheet. And you have, you write the whole utterance there, as you see. Then what you do is what I said to do. You mark the utterance according to the subject, the verb, and the complement, the main head of the complement phrase, that main word, which is SVC. I want cat. That is the SVC. Now you remember from my previous comments in this course that SVC is the core, essential Lego block unit of a sentence. I am working to get you, the student, to be appreciative of that SVC as as representing a neurologic structure, a unit that gets generated when we make sentences or when a child generates a sentence. We will then only consider SVC to identify what the verb relation content category is. And in this case, what is it? I want cat. Very good. It is state. So the verb relation content category goes on the top. State. And then you make a page. That will mean that you will have a page for state because you've identified a sentence. You have an utterance in your sample that has the verb relation content category state represented. See that? Now, now kitty cat to me is almost a single word. But what if the child made in sentence number 17, maybe mommy said, well, what kind of cat? What cat do you want? And the kid says, I want a red kitty cat. Say the child says that. How do we handle that? Well, you have to start your thinking about this on your transcription sheet. But what you must do is, before you answer the question, what is the verb relation content category, you have to go S, V, C. Sorry for that noise behind me. That was the wash, which is now done, as you hear. I was talking and I did not. I should have been closed, that door, but it wasn't. I hope you were following me. In any event, SV, made a mistake here. Cat is a C. I can't do two things at once anymore. Okay, SVC. See that? SVC. I want cat. In other words, the verb relation content category here is, again, state. But there's an extra word here. Red. See that? Red. I'll italicize it and even bold it. What is that extra word in terms of content? It's outside of the SVC, therefore it is a non-verb relation. It will represent, that word will represent a non-verb relation content category, a coordinated category. So we go to the bottom here and we see red is attribution. See, attribution is here. That's already there for us. So we simply put in the number of the sentence, 17. That's really all you have to do. Put in the number of the sentence. If you want, especially if you're doing an analysis, say, of the kinds of attributes the child is producing, you might want to put in the word red so that later you can, particularly if you're using this format for assessment purposes, a formal assessment of a child with a delay, you might want to note the actual words from the sentence that represent the coordinated category on the bottom. So later on you can summarize things better or do better analyses, easier analyses. In any event, the point is the following, that as you identify your sentences, you identify the verb relation content category and put your sentence on the page, analysis page, that corresponds to the verb relation content category you've identified in your utterance. Notice, in your language sample, all state utterances will then go on the same page, unless you run out of space and then you go to another page. But on the same page or pages, they're a list. They're numbered, so we know where they fell out in the transcription. But all of the same ones go on a page. Therefore, please make a copy of multiple Level 3, Level 2, and Level 4 language analysis worksheets, because each one is going to have a list of things on it. Particularly the Level 3s, make a lot of pages of that. Okay? So what you'll do in your sample is put all of the state utterances on one page. And all of the utterances in which state is a three constituent is the verb relation content category that is represented by the SVC constituent group unit, SVC constituent unit. Those go on a page. Now, you may have a sentence that the child might also say, that's a soda, that's a Pepsi, that's a Pepsi. Well, that's a Pepsi. Subject verb complement is that, subject is complement, Pepsi, is verb, Pepsi complement. That goes to existence. So you'd have to start a new page, write the word existence on top, and put that utterance and its number under the existence category. You see, you start a page for existence, etc., etc. Following me? Good. And in all cases, the SVC, when I go through the sample and grade it and evaluate how you've done, I will scan down, I will in my own mind mark SVC, and I will see if the SVC corresponds in the utterances on that page to that content category named on top. See that? And then I will double check to see if the extra words are picked up, the content categories for the words outside of the SVC unit, whether those content categories are marked as coordinates below. There are a couple of ones that I don't typically ask you to always do, and that is tense is always temporal, and you don't have to mark tense for every sentence. If the child is coding tense, cool. However, if the child is inconsistently coding tense and you want to do a study of tense, then you would mark tense on the bottom under as a non-verb relation temporal content category, and you could even note the tenses the child is producing. Okay? Now, while we're on the Level 3 analysis sheet, I draw your attention to these four columns, 2 included columns and 2 expected columns. What does include and expect refer to? What does include and respect refer to? Well, let's think for a second, or let me explain to you straight out. Include and expect refer directly to the constituents, the SVC constituents. Include 2 and 3 refers to how many SVC constituents did the child produce in the sentence. So let's look here. SVC. The child produced 3 constituents. I will make an X under 3 because the child produced 3 constituents. Expect means as an adult. What would an adult produce if the adult produced that sentence? Well, I'm an adult, so I'll ask myself, I want a cat. I want cat. Is that cool? Is that what I would produce? Yes, I would produce 3 constituents. I do the same here. I get 3 and 3. But just say the number 18 one, the child said, I wanna. Now, I wanna, that has at least two constituents related to a verb, and that is the subject and the verb, but the child left out the complement, you see. So I would say the child only included 2 constituents here. But if I produced the sentence, I would have completed it. I would have said, I want, and want is typically followed by a complement. So I would say you would expect that an adult would produce 3 complements if that adult used want in the sentence. The sentence was a state sentence around the verb want. Following me? That's what include and expect. I will explain a little later the reason for the include and expect analysis concerns the use of the Bloom and Leahy format, the use of the format as a formal assessment tool in the assessment of children with a suspected language delay. You may need a criterion reference statistic, and we will later on address how you actually compute a score, an achievement score based on this included and expected analysis. Like pragmatics, we'll come to that later on. I'm not going to get there today. Following me on this, so you'll have a page for every content category a type of verb relation content category you identify. You'll have a separate level 3 analysis page, and you'll put all similar content category utterances on the same page. So you'll have one page with multiple states, possibly multiple existence utterances, etc. on another page, but you'll have a separate page for each type of content category. One page for state, one page for existence, one for locative action, if you identify those in your sample. Only create pages for the types of content categories you find in your sample. And I should have said types of verb relation content categories you find in your sample at level 3. Keep in mind, I require on the analysis sheet, not on the transcription sheet alone, on the analysis sheet that you mark SVC. If I do not see an SVC, when I review your projects, I will consider that project unacceptable and incomplete. Unacceptable and incomplete. You must mark SVC on your analysis sheet for level 3 utterances. That is for single verb utterances. You would not mark SVC for level 2 utterances because there's no SVC there, no syntax. And we're about to deal with level 4 utterances, and there I will not require that you mark SVC. I am going to take a small break myself right now, so you'll find the level 4 analysis discussion on the next lecture recording. and I'm sure I will mark it level 4 lecture recording or some version of that.